Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of The Dice Must Flow. We're doing a board game review today. We're doing a review of Champions of Midgard by Gray Fox Games. Now this is a really fun, it's a combination worker placement and dice combat against the board game, so you don't really combat each player. And this is really especially important or relevant right now because Gray Fox is running a Kickstarter for 2 expansions to this game, and we'll be taking a look at those soon. So in this case, you are a Viking warrior, and the Viking warrior, the Jarl, the leader of the Viking clan, has just died, and you are trying to gain glory and become the new leader of the clan, or Jarl. And so this is a worker placement game. Now what do we mean by worker placement? Basically, it means that we have so many meeples or tokens that our character or each player has, and they take turns moving around the board, placing the meeples out at a location. And when you place at the location, that location is limited by to be just one token per person. So, for example, if you move your token to the swordsmith, you would get all sword players from that and add them to your board. Same for if you would move to the smokehouse, you would get all meat from that person. And so this goes around the board, and it's limited, so it's kind of a interesting fight between players to get to the places they want to be. And so you can actually move to the Jarl's Lounge, which lets you take the starting player. So every turn, the starting player could be different, and that gives you the action next round. With that, let's take a look at each of the locations on the board. Each player has a different player board, which each have different powers. You can see that this one, they draw one additional, destiny card when visiting the sage's hut. The berserker gains an additional glory each time you roll a 1 or more 2-hit results in a round. So we'll just kind of go over some of the spaces on the board at first. Up in the upper left, and let me say, this is just a beautiful board. And the artwork, it's just outstanding when you see it. It just jumps off the table at you. So in the upper left is the trolls, and each turn players have to fight the troll, and if the troll is not defeated, a blame token goes to each player. Players have blame, and this is basically a negative point to your points at the end, negative points to your point total at the end. And they are exponential. The more blame tokens you have, the steeper the curve is for the blame. There's Draugr cards, and these represent different Draugr that you would have to fight. And each turn, each time one is killed, you would place one over. Moving on down there's the hunting grounds, where you can move your Viking warriors to try and get food, which is represented by brown cubes. There's the runesmith, where you can go there and pick a destiny card, and this is basically a card that you can use at the end of game, and they all have conditions on them. For example, well, they don't all have conditions. This one here is, if you would get it, it would gifts, and you can gain any combination of 4 wood, food, or money. But some of these are reroll any Viking warriors which came up blank in a round of hunting or combat. So that's the runesmith cards. And some of them are victory condition cards. So you can see this one, if you have the most food at the end of the game, you get, if you're the sole person with that, you get 5. If there's people tied, you get 2 points of victory. Moving on down over, like most worker placement games, there is a first player token, and moving your worker here will allow you to take that first player and get a die from the supply. Moving on over, you have the market where you can trade at a 1-to-1 ratio food, gold, and wood. Now would be a good time to actually talk about the dice. So you can move, as you move into your token into these locations, and it's only one worker per round. You get to pick up the dice, and as you add these dice to your leaderboard, so and each player would start with some. So, and they're limited by the 8 spaces. So if I would move a leader token here, I would get all the dice on this location and move it over to my board. So same for this player went to here, it would get that die. And so the dice are swords, hafters, or blacksmith, but basically the sword players have 1 regular sword, 1 double sword, and 1 shield, and the rest are blank. The axes have 2 spaces with double axes and 2 spaces with single axes. And the red dice has 1 double, 2 singles, and 1 defense. And we'll talk about what those mean later. The game has limited replayability, or replayability in the sense that there's market stalls, and you choose different market stalls every different game, and you can have, depending on the 3 or 4 players, you have different. You can have a larger number of them. But so, like this market stall, get for 1 food you get 2 white dice, and for this market stall you can trade 1 food for 1 glory for a maximum of 5 times. So that is the market stalls and the dice. You can actually buy from gold an extra worker token, which you can then use in next turn, so that's very important. And it's got a kind of a catch-up mechanism in the game, so you can, the first player has to pay more, the first player that buys that token has to pay more. You can go into the stave church where you can trade gold for staves. And I guess the other part of this game is you need to sail for conquest. And so you can move to the shipwrights and take a ship. And to take a ship, you would have to take your dice from your player board and move on over. Now, each of these places down at the bottom have enemy monsters. And we'll just play 3 monsters, and so people can kind of see them. And the monsters, a nasty one. If you defeat them, then you get staves or gold or victory conditions. So the interesting thing about this is you have to load dice or men on your ship, and you have to load food and supplies onto there too. And as you sail over, there are cards that were placed, that would be placed here, that are secret, and when you sail they're revealed. And this one is all quiet, there's no effect But this one is, for example, a whirlpool. If this was sailing and it hit the whirlpool, you would lose 1 die onto that from that boat. Or in this case, you would have to lose 2 items, food or a person. 1 cube of food will feed 2 dice on the ship. If you don't have enough, those people starve before combat. Okay, now we've talked a little bit about the trolls and the draugrs and the monsters. So let's take a quick look at the combat. If you had placed a worker token up at the troll to fight the troll, and this was your troll, you would have to fight the troll. Now this troll is going to do 3 damage to you, and it only has essentially 1 hit point, 1 defense. So you would roll, and the number of swords you would roll would be the number of damage you do to the creature, and the number of shields you would subtract from that damage it does to you. So for example, in this case, we would do 2 damage to it, and it would do 3 damage to us. So and this is simultaneously, so the 2 damage against the 1 is enough to kill the troll. However, the troll does 3 damage against us. We don't have any shields, and so we would take 3 damage, and that would remove all 3 dice from our dice pool. If we had actually rolled the 2 and the 1 shield, then the 3 minus the 1 would have done 2, and we could have chosen to lose 2 tokens. Okay, now that you have a feel for the game, let's talk about scoring. Whoever scores the most glory in the game wins. We've kind of talked a little bit about that before. When you defeat the troll, you gain 6 glory, and you can give 1 of your blame tokens that you have to a different player. Defeating the draugrs, each one has different values, but they basically provide 3 glory, 1 gold. Here's one that provides 5 glory and 3 gold. The monsters, if you were fighting this Crimthurs, I think is how it's pronounced, it would give you 11 glory and a stave. And as we talked about earlier, you can go to the stave church and you can convert gold to staves. So, looking at the victory conditions, there are victory conditions in different sorts. There's destiny cards, and this is where we talked about if you have alone satisfied the condition of the destiny card, you've completely fulfilled your destiny and score the larger glory bonus. If you're tied for the condition, you only partially realize and get the split glory bonus. And that is, for example, the one that we showed earlier, or for example, this Troll Slayer, where if you had killed the most trolls during the game, you get 6 glory. Sets of enemies. As you may have noticed, some of the enemies are blue and red and yellow, or gold. And basically, if you have, for each set of 1 of each color, 1 blue, 1 yellow, 1 red, enemy that you have killed, you get an additional 5 glory. Runes are symbols of power, and they give you glory in a varied amount as told on this card here, or as your different cards. During the game we didn't talk about it, but you have the opportunity to buy ships, and long ships are a status symbol, provide glory based on the type of the long ship that you built. Some of them are, for example, like this one, which would be worth 6 glory. Favor of the gods, for each unspent favor token that you have, and favor being staves, it is worth 2 glory at the end of the game. And then finally, for every 3 coins you have, you score 1 glory. Now, as we talked about earlier, there's these blame tokens, and every round that a troll lives, a blame token is given out to every player. And if you kill the troll, you can transfer 1 of your blame tokens. And so these blame tokens can all the way, if you have 1 of them, it's a -1, all the way up to, if you have 6 or more, it's -21. We'll try and show the chart right there. And so this is an interesting way, when one person gets a lead, players can kind of pass the blame to that person and bring him back to the pack. So that's basically the game. And, you know, like I said, worker placement and combat. I really like this because it's not as just plain dull. I don't want to say dull. It's not as just plain static as worker placement. It does have the combat, but you're not fighting the other players, and that's one thing I like. You know, area control games have a tendency for the players to have a conflict with the players, and sometimes doesn't lead to a great gaming experience. This lets you get some of your combat in that you're looking for, but play against the other players, and it seems like the guy in front of you is always going to where you want it to go. And so there's that level of frustration there, the level of competitiveness and strategy as you're trying to figure out what each player is doing. And so, you know, like I said, I really like this game. I've gone ahead and backed the Kickstarter for the expansions, and I'm really looking forward to them. And we will talk next time about the expansions and what they are planning for the Kickstarter. So that's it for today. Thanks, have a good day, and you know, definitely go out, take a look at this game from Gray Fox Games, and pick it up, give it a good go, and let me know what you think of it. Thanks.